Welcome to the Recovery Daily podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Miller. I'm a stroke survivor and grateful recovering alcoholic. And today's topic is a smarter way to learn. And the reason why I chose this topic today is because I wanted to figure out if there's a better way that I can be incentivized in order to learn Voiceover on my Mac, because it's been challenging for me. I like procrastinating. I'm like, the reward isn't quite as attractive to me as the energy that it takes to practice Voiceover on my Mac. So anyway, I'm going to talk about how I can entice myself a little better in order to learn it. And for those of you who are not aware, me using digital devices hurts my head. Part of my vision impairment is that I have a difficult time looking at digital devices. So I use VoiceOver on my phone, which is going pretty well. But using VoiceOver on my Mac is kind of challenging, and so I'm trying to find out if there's some kind of formal training. I haven't been able to find any. I've been listening to YouTube videos, and my only solution has been to listen to the videos over and over and over again until it gets kind of ingrained in my head. So that's what I've been doing, and I've learned it. I'm getting there, but I'm like at that point where I just get frustrated. I'm like, I don't feel like doing that. I'd rather have my head hurt than keep doing this. I get a little aggravated. But before I go into that, I wanted to announce that the podcast that I was interviewed on, I was a guest on, just was published today on YouTube, and it's by a podcaster named Bill, and the podcast is called Recovery After Stroke. So he interviewed me about my challenges and my how I've found my mind is blank. Sorry. How I have found my way through recovery. Man, I don't know. I'm having a tough night. So anyway, I'll put the link in the chat to that. I feel like I'm doing all of the filler words right now. I'm doing like the and the and all of that stuff. I don't know. Like I'm nervous or something. I don't know what's happening. Anyway, okay, so I will put the information in the show notes. I think I said in the chat. I'm a mess right now. Okay, I'm going to put the information for the show that I was the guest on in the show notes for this episode. Now let's get to the topic at hand, a smarter way to learn. So the first thing I looked into is, why are adults slower learners? Because I'm not buying it. I don't think that adults are slower learners. I think it's all about how we expose ourselves to whatever it is that we want to learn. That's what I think. So I went into my research with that frame of mind. So maybe I needed to be proved wrong. You guys know that I'm a little bullheaded. So one thing that I learned, or that somebody said, we'll just say, is that adults have more distractions, and maybe that's why they're slower learners. I'm not buying it. I think that adults have just as much of a difficult time focusing as children. When I think back to my kids trying to focus on their homework and stuff like that, like it was difficult to get them to focus. I realized that adults have a lot of things like taxes and mortgages and kids they're raising and car payments and all of these things that seem overwhelming at times. But honestly, if I were putting myself in my kids' shoes, they have a lot of things. It's real life when you're a kid too. All of those things are just as I mean, not those things, but the things that you deal with as a kid are just as overwhelming and just as real and just as stressful. So I'm not buying it about the distractions. So let's go on to the next one. Next is that children's brains are more, have more neuroplasticity. And I'm no doctor, because if I was, I wouldn't be doing a podcast. But I don't know that I buy that one either, really. I feel like, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like if I wanted to learn the piano, if I sat down to try to learn the piano and my kids sat down to learn the piano, I feel like we both had a fighting chance, an equal fighting chance to learn the piano. That's what I think, but I could be totally wrong. But what I want to focus on right now is adults, okay? So neuroplasticity, which is something that I never even heard the word before until I had my stroke. And now it's all over the place, this neuroplasticity, and how stroke survivors are able to recover, are able to be rehabilitized, rehabilitation. I don't know. I'm a mess today. So, have rehabilitation. And so anyway, neuroplasticity is a process, and it needs heavy focus and repeated practice. When I went to vision therapy, and for the brief period of time that I went, when I needed to look at the card that was like 7 feet away from me and rotate my focus back and forth from that card to the card that was 13 feet away from me to practice my convergence issues, I was able to start doing it. It took about 4 weeks, something like that I went from being able to only look back and forth at these cards about 5 times without getting severe head pain to 40 times without getting severe head pain. So it's not something that you just sit down and do once. I had to go back and forth between these cards twice a day for 4 weeks or something like that in order to be able to change my focus back and forth. So how can I get myself to have the incentive to learn this voiceover stuff? What I learned is that we need a learning trigger, a sort of urgency. So I dealt with this when I was doing the vision therapy also. Like, I got so sick and tired of going up in this room and sitting down and looking back and forth between these cards. I have to look at one card, count to 3, look at the further card, count to 3, and go back and forth like 40 times back and forth. It just gets pretty freaking boring and you're not seeing a lot of results. I'm not seeing the reward. And that's one of the things that I think where the solution may be for me to start learning voiceover is to figure out how I can reward myself more often. So We need a learning trigger and an urgency, an incentive for neuroplasticity. How important is the thing I want to learn to me? What it made me think of when I read about this was, or when I was listening about this, was you can't teach old dogs new tricks. And I feel like that should be preceded by, unless you have a ballpark hot dog, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It really just depends on what's in it for me. That's really, you know, I've run across that in marketing. I've been a marketing director for quite some time. And before that, I don't know, I was in marketing for almost 30 years now. And it's all about what's in it for me. Everywhere you go, it's all about what's in it for me. And it's the same thing about learning. This very much correlates to the episode that I did on sorry, I'm having a tough time remembering words today. On procrastination. There it is. So, about reward, breaking things into small pieces, rewarding ourselves more often. And that's really where this is going to go as well. So, another thing that I learned a little bit about is taking a nap after learning. And I've heard about this, and what I had thought though is that I can do my vision therapy, go back and forth between the cards, focusing, and then go take a 20-minute nap. That's what I thought. I thought, is that what that means? That I go take a 20-minute nap? And it's like, what I had heard is when you sleep after you learn, it's like clicking the download button. It's like whatever you learned is then being encoded in your brain as you sleep. But there is a certain level of sleep that you like, deep sleep. You need to get to deep sleep, not just one of those cat naps. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And then let's see. So hitting the download button. So the stress, this is something I learned. The stress and the challenge to focus when we want to learn something is caused by adrenaline. And there's all these, everything I listened to had all these chemicals they were talking about that are released when we're trying to learn. This adrenaline thing actually acts as a trigger, like it helps us to trigger the learning process, but it very much leads to the frustration. So we have to overcome the frustration barrier in order to really get in there and start focusing on what we're trying to learn. I also learned about gap learning. So this means that you take breaks. And I think we learn about that a lot in society. I know a lot of workshops that I went to at work and different classes that I took, they always take little 10-minute breaks. They call them bio breaks. My boss used to call it bio breaks. I don't like that. I think that's a horrible name for a break. Anyway, but they actually serve a purpose, and that is to give your brain a chance to rest, really. And what I learned also is that learning should be broken into 90-minute periods. So within those 90 minutes, you may want to take a couple 10-minute breaks. 10-second breaks. So also the coffee that we happen to use to help us stay focused is helpful on the trigger side, but it can also lead to us needing to overcome that frustration barrier. So the very thing that helps us get engaged in our learning is also the thing that will pull us away. You know what I mean? Um, but we do need to deliberately disengage throughout our learning for 10 seconds in these 10-second pauses in order to, um, kind of just rest the brain, like clicking the save button. So I love learning, and I didn't want to graduate from school because I thought that meant my opportunities to learn were over. So that was so naive. I realize that now. But I think the accomplishment that I feel from learning is so rewarding to me. It must be like when I talk to other people, they are like, I could do it without it, but I really love it. I just get some good, happy chemicals from learning. So, how do we learn smarter? How am I going to um, feel like I'm progressing faster or accomplishing anything in some way with the voiceover? So the first thing is to learn smarter is to answer the question, why do I want to learn it? And I think the reason why I want to learn voiceover is because I want to be able to connect with people and go on the internet and stuff without head pain. And I feel like I should be able to do that. I don't want my vision impairment to keep me away from getting to be connected to the world like everybody else is. Um, but I think that this is not good enough for me. I think that just the simple fact of a generalized um, purpose of wanting to learn voiceover, I don't think it has been enough for me to continue to want to learn it. I think I need to break down this goal into smaller, achievable, rewardable, and repeatable bytes. So, just like the procrastination is not for laziness episode that I did, if the whole skill is driving an emotional response, meaning it's making me not want to do it, it's making me frustrated, then I need to break it down far enough that each achievable, rewardable, and repeatable byte causes a small emotional response that I can overcome. I can overcome that frustration barrier. Just like when we're, babies, you have to learn to crawl, and then you learn to stand, and then you learn to walk before you can learn to run. Can you imagine like expecting a little baby to run? Like it's the same frustration barrier. So this is why these learning management systems are so successful, because they, like LinkedIn Learning, that's one of my favorites. I use it all the time. It breaks down your learning into achievable, rewardable, and repeatable bytes. So LinkedIn Learning, Masterclass. I actually built an LMS system at my last job, and within that system, we had achievements, badges, and quizzes. And the whole point of that is to keep the momentum going so that you keep wanting to learn, you keep getting rewarded. So if I allot time each day with no distractions, then I'm setting myself up for success to learn voiceover. What that means to me is that I need to actually, as much as I hate it, I need to put my puppies away in their in their crates just for, a half an hour, or however long I want to commit to learning voiceover. Also, snacks. I don't need to be eating snacks when I'm trying to learn. Turning the music on. TV is not a problem because I haven't watched TV in 4 months because of my eyes. So, so really setting up my environment to not have any distractions will keep me focused on learning voiceover. So, I wrote down a few achievable, rewardable, repeatable bytes for me to attempt to learn voiceover in a way that I will be rewarding myself. So, the first one is something that I've already done once, but then I achieved it and then I'm like, meh, I'm not doing it anymore. So the first one is write a blog for my website, recoverydailypodcast.com, using voiceover only. So using voiceover, that means that my computer screen is completely black. I can't look at it. So I'm only navigating using the ladies talking to me. I call her Karen, but she's talking to me and telling me like what the commands are and everything. So writing the blog, editing the blog, and then actually going on to WordPress and uploading the blog and publishing on my website, all without looking. So I did it once and I felt very accomplished. That's my reward, but then I didn't do it anymore because I was like, I did it. Well, that's because I keep fighting this, the permanent state of my vision. I keep thinking that it's going to get better. And so I keep like teetering back and forth between using voiceover and looking at my device, which I end up having a headache and then I regress. And I talked about that yesterday. Like I'm in this 1 month loop of my head hurting, starting to use voiceover, getting better, and then going back again. I just can't seem to accept the fact that my vision impairment is permanent. And I think it's because I don't know if it's permanent or not. And I keep testing it. I go on migraine medication, the migraine injections. I thought that maybe I was beating the migraines, but I was wrong. I started doing things and my head hurts again. The sharp pains even are coming back. So, I learned my lesson. I keep testing it. The neurologist said it was okay for me to keep testing it. So it makes me feel not so bad. Okay, so that's the first one, to write a blog without looking at all using voiceover. That's the first accomplishment. So I need to do it again. I need to every time. So my commitment is to write a blog a week, which I have not been doing. I do it as much as I possibly can, but it has not been a week. But that's my goal. You guys know that I always set high goals for myself. So doing that once a week will certainly continue to allow me to learn voiceover in that way, where I'm learning how to use Microsoft Word and WordPress. The second one is learn Facebook on voiceover. And I chose Facebook instead of LinkedIn because Facebook is more forgiving. I think if I were to, put something wrong in there and accidentally hit post, then LinkedIn, which is more of a career-based type platform, in my opinion. So I would prefer to try to learn, not to try to learn, but to learn Facebook using voiceover first. Then next, use voiceover to learn LinkedIn. And then next I have write a chapter of my new book using voiceover. So I've been using dictation to start writing chapters in this book, which is fine using dictation. It's not perfect, but The challenge is editing, because I mean, I did it. I've done it with the blog, but it took like a couple hours using VoiceOver to edit a blog, because you really have to like shut your eyes and almost envision where you are in the text and stuff. It's very challenging. So that's another goal. It's kind of an uphill climb, but another goal is to do all of my podcast research with VoiceOver. And for the most part, I do already, but I do find excuses to switch over to looking at my computer and giving myself a headache. And the next one I have is checking emails using VoiceOver. I tried this and I have not mastered it yet, but I have tried it. It's a lot of talking. Karen has a lot to say when she's in my email inbox. And then next, I have get ad-free membership to YouTube Premium. That way I don't have to deal with those freaking ads on YouTube. They drive me crazy. Anyway, so this is my plan. This is the plan that I've come up with, where I'm going to try to use these smaller goals. And I'm really riding on the fact that accomplishing each one is going to be its own reward. So I'll tell you how it goes. That's the plan. And I think we have just as great a chance of learning as our kids do. It's just a matter of exposing ourselves to the right environment, having the right mindset. We're not going to have somebody hanging over our shoulders like we did when we were kids, or at least I hung over my kids' shoulders a little bit. So anyway, we'll see how it goes. And thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.